Ladies and gentlemen, here is the man. Here is the man who has been involved in just about every aspect of motorsports, and we're thankful that he has joined us here tonight. So give a big warm welcome to Sam Schmidt, if you would, please. You come from Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Why? No.
Thinking we should have done this in July.
What kind of weather do you have out there this time of year?
It's, yeah, right now it's about 55 to 60, but it does get down in the high 30s at night,
Yeah.
so it's even cold for my preference, but it's certainly, I don't know, you know, this to roll in here, see the light show and everything that going on here, it's pretty super cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't been, since they started doing the light thing around the track, I haven't been here, so.
I remember doing a series of racing in Tucson, and I was amazed at how cold it gets in the desert. Is that the way it is near Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's called high desert, and it's closer to the sun in July, which you don't want to be, and in the winter it's cold at night. Yep.
Well, let's talk about the present and the future, and then we'll go back to the past. How's Robert?
Robert's great. I mean, anybody can follow him on social media. It's done wonders for his social media numbers. I think he's up to 150,000 followers or something. But he's, you know, I've now, he's obviously been transferred to Denver, Craig Hospital there, which is, you know, we did a big search. There's, I'm all too familiar with the process, but there's about 19 spinal cord injury rehabilitation hospitals in the U.S., and the best of the best is probably Kessler, New Jersey, and Shepherd in Atlanta, and then Craig in Denver. And so we did the big search and who could service him better and you know, get the most out of him in the facility, and went there, I guess, about 4 weeks ago. Got his sort of weight-bearing restrictions off his ankles released about a week and a half ago, and he's already, you know, doing weight-supported walking, and again, you can kind of follow that stuff on Instagram. But the you know, what I tell people is, the bottom line is what made Robert Wiggins such a fantastic, unbelievable driver last year is the same qualities that are going to give him the best opportunity to come out of this, right? He's basically a complete pain in the ass to everybody around him. And,
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah. I met his physical therapist, and I said, man, do I feel sorry for you, because he you know, he demands perfection of everybody around him, and he's doing that there. And, you know, it was nice being here, but there was a lot of distractions here. And so I think there, you know, it's 5 days a week, head down, just focused on, you know, recovering.
Is there hope that he will walk again by himself?
You know, again, have a lot of experience in this area. And the spinal cord injury is, you know, you can look at 100 MRIs that look the same, you're going to have 100 different outcomes. But because of his age, because of his conditioning, because of his mental, you know, discipline, I'm pretty convinced personally that he won't need a wheelchair.
Wow.
It's just a matter of you know, getting from that to being a top-level driver again. You've seen some guys do it, like Alex Zanardi, et cetera, even with a disability. So, yeah, he's you know, the next 60 days are going to be kind of critical, because until he got the weight-bearing restriction off his ankles, really couldn't challenge him. Yeah. And so now they're doing that, and they're going through the process. His sensations coming back, you know, as well as the muscles. But, you know, yeah, typically a year and a half in, you reach a bit of a plateau, and so it's going to be interesting. But you know, again, I wouldn't count him out.
I want you to tell him the next time you talk to him how much this group here hopes and prays that everything will turn out all right. Let's tell Sam how much we want that to happen so he can take it back to Robert. And you know, I would think that one other thing that gives you hope and him are groups like your foundation, which helps the doctors and anybody that has anything to do with spinal cord injuries. It gives you hope. I'm sure a lot has changed since You had your accident, huh?
A tremendous amount. That's, I was just talking to somebody about that today, that, I can't believe January would be 19 years for me. And, but what we've seen in that 19 years is unbelievable, especially probably done more in the last 5 years than the previous, 20 years combined. The last, 3 May events that we've had here in Indianapolis, we've had guys that were told 6 months to a year earlier, you got a paralysis, you're never going to walk again, forget it. And one of them was Kevin Swindell, right? 3 years ago at our event, gets up and walks across stage, and he was told, you're never going to walk again, right? So these are all a combination of therapies, drug therapies, intensive rehabilitation, but, you can't do it without a positive attitude. And so, we're seeing, I think we just have eclipsed like 17 million that we've invested in medical research as our foundation, and now just literally last week we did the grand opening of a neuro recovery center in Las Vegas, because there hasn't been one there, and we need one desperately, where we can do the kind of treatments that these, Kentucky and some other places are offering for the West Coast. So, amazing opportunities now, but you still got to work hard at it.
I am a big Formula One fan, and when I was talking to Will last night, he said he was, but that the races aren't as exciting as they used to be because it's turned into pretty much a manufacturer series with Mercedes-Benz and Ferrari and Red Bull and everybody else. But there's one driver, actually there's more than one, but one driver I've noticed in particular who is in the also-rans that has an incredible talent and I think is going to make a big dent in the Indycar series this coming year, and that is Marcus Ericsson. Tell us about him and how you made the contact with him.
Well, we had the, got hit in the face with the August situation in Pocono, and literally, I think we were all, in shock and recovering from that mentally and emotionally, and still had to finish the season like any racer has to do. And then it's like, oh my gosh, he's probably not going to be back next year. What are we going to do? Started evaluating, the landscape, what was out there. And, let's face it, some of the automatic people you would put in the car had already renewed contracts, such as a Bourdais or anybody like that, had renewed contracts come back for 2019. So we're like, well, 12 months ago we thought outside the box. To bring in Robert Wickens, which really wasn't on anybody's radar. Let's do it again, and talk to half a dozen guys, and I won't go into names, but to a large extent, even with the success of Robert Wickens, somewhat of an, and these were guys that were not running the series. It was a bit of an attitude like, what are you going to do for me, and why should I come to IndyCar and try and sell me an IndyCar, which is not the kind of attitude I want as a driver. But the first time I called Marcus, he's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you gave me a call. I have been, really interested in IndyCar for a couple years. He's still young. He's 26, 27 years old. But young, relative. He said, I watched what Robert did this year, and he said, it's just, you would not believe how incredibly frustrating it is to be driving in Formula One with never having a chance to win a race. And again, nothing against Sauber. They spend a lot of money on it and a lot of effort, but like you said, unless you're in a Mercedes or Ferrari, you don't have a chance. I mean, to some extent, Red Bull does as well with Magnussen, et cetera. But all of that to say, he's done 5 years of nonstop simulator work, physical conditioning. Like Robert, those guys come over and they get held to a really high standard physically and mentally and preparation-wise, because there is so much of an investment. And when I talked to him, he spent an hour talking about how badly he wanted to come to America and prove that he can run up front again and to have that opportunity to race for podiums. And so, all the things you want to hear. I will not live in Miami or Europe and commute. I will move to Indianapolis. I don't have a wife. I don't have a girlfriend. I will be 120% focused I will be in the shop every day. I know I have a ton to learn. I don't know the tracks. I don't know holes. I need you guys a lot, and those are all the things you want to hear. So from that point on, I really don't think it was like two or 3 weeks we had a deal. So obviously hoping that Robert's back in 2020. That's the goal. But we'll see what we can do with this.
You're going to run 3 cars, so you've got a Hinch and Ericsson and anybody else?
Well, no, we're running 2. We have basically effectively parked the 6 number for Robert's return. So we're going to run the 5 and the 7, which we usually run the 7 as a third car Indy, but run the 5 and 7 all year. Announce that livery probably in January, and then again the 6 is available whenever he's ready to come back. We'll probably see what happens in the next few months, but run a 3rd at Indy, if it's not him. So
Did you test at Sebring?
we did Tuesday. I wasn't here, but there a couple guys in the back were there, and I got the full download at the shop yesterday, and went extremely well. Just did a ton of laps, never put a wheel wrong, and good feedback as you would expect, and really good.
Good. Okay, let's go back. You're born in Lincoln, Nebraska. I haven't heard of very many.
Go Big Red.
Oh, you mean the Indiana Hoosiers? Right.
Oh my God, there's a Smith right there. Speedway Motors. No. You must be lost tonight. Don't you have a dinner downtown?
So, how'd you get started in racing?
My dad, he was. I tell a story that is very funny in that I think I was born into it simply because my mom had to drive away from the church when they got married because his license was revoked for street racing, but then they literally left the church, cans and everything, and went straight to Omaha for the drags, and he raced that weekend at the Omaha drags, and that was their honeymoon, So, but my dad was. I see some well-aged people in the room, so recognize some names here. My dad was known in the Midwest as a pretty good fabricator, raced super modifieds and drag cars in and around Lincoln, Eagle Raceway, et cetera. And there's a well-known car builder on the West Coast by the name of Don Brown, Prince of Darkness, if anybody knows his name. And when I was really young, like 3, Don Brown got a contract to build 3 cars, one for Joe Saldana, one for Greg Weld, and another car called the Rabbit. And my dad, basically Don said, can you get out here in 3 days, because I got to build these cars in like 5 weeks. And so my dad, loaded us up in the 55 Chevy, and for some reason never went back to Lincoln, Nebraska. But so I grew up in Southern California, which is a hotbed of off-road racing and all that kind of stuff. My dad got into off-road racing, and so he put me on a motorcycle when I was 5 years old.
You went to Pepperdine?
Mm-hmm.
They have some good basketball teams once in a while, don't they?
Not right now, but
well,
they did.
I can relate to that.
When I was going there, they.
You ever play any sports of any kind?
I did, because again, another twist in life. My dad was racing off-road when I was 11, and he got paralyzed racing off-road, and at that time I was racing motocross full-time, and he was racing off-road, and so I kind of put the brakes on racing for that. So that's when I did play football, basketball, baseball in high school, and I couldn't stay away. And in college, I got into SCCA road racing and said, if I'm any good at this, I'll keep going. If I'm not, I'll do something else. And won like the SCCA national championship my first year, and the rest was downhill. So.
But you also ran stock cars, didn't you?
No, not a lot. I wrenched on a lot of stock cars on the West Coast, Winston West Tour and stuff like that. And my dad had a wrecking yard, so he sponsored some local guys. But it was straight from the off-road to the road course racing. My uncle raced late models and stuff like that. So.
I asked Will this last night, and I'll ask you too, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier for you to remember having grown up in the United States rather than Australia, but when did you first know about Indianapolis?
5 years old. Because, well, that's the first time I remember, because it was all about the Mears gang on the West Coast in Bakersfield, and Rick and Roger Mears. And so Rick, kind of became my hero at a young age, and seeing what he did going from off-road racing to Super Bs to Penske Racing. And so, yeah, he's my guy.
He still is among the favorites of mine, too.
Yeah.
So, your transition into IndyCar racing, how'd that go about?
Well, yeah, to that point, I think from that point on, it was always, how do we try and find a pathway to Indianapolis? Got derailed, and it was a bit fuzzy there for a while. I mean, Rick did it through Super Vs. Other guys were doing it through midget sprint cars. And then, of course, there was, 1995 and that whole situation. My dad was actually, another completely unknown trivia question, but I know David already knows the answer, so you can't ask him. But my dad was a car owner here in 1978, 78, 79 with Dana Carter and who else was driving? So, being a part of that at 13 years old was pretty cool. It was 1978, and they had a 73 March, and Don Brown was making aluminum wings for it, to try and update it to look like something else. And that's back when you could do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And,
So did you come with your dad
yeah.
when he was a car owner?
Yeah, we came all over from California with like a mini Winnie and an open trailer. They don't do that anymore.
No, I was going to say, I long for those days again, but maybe not.
Bologna sandwiches?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that was fun. First, Indianapolis 500. What do you remember?
I remember everything, every minute, every moment, because my driver coach for the month, smartest thing I ever did was hire Gary Bettenhausen. Oh, yeah. And got a few stories there as well, but he taught me, everything I needed to know, and just, fell in love with the place, and qualified fastest rookie, and that was the first year the Oldsmobile Nissan engine debacle, and my motor blew up in the pace lap, so that was not a great rookie race, but yeah, I loved the place since the first lap, and Larry Nash was preparing my car, a very meticulous guy, and so yeah, it was good. It was good.
And then Las Vegas in 1999.
Yeah, that was the dream deal. I mean, we struggled as, sort of privateer, one engines, I think I had two engines, 97, 98, struggled with funding the whole deal, but best thing that ever happened was Las Vegas 1998. That one of those engines was getting rebuilt and getting shipped, and my other engine was mileaged out and didn't show up. And so we practiced on the old engine, but they wouldn't let us run it for the race. Missed qualifying, and sort of the best, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The worst turned to the best, because I was fortunate to borrow an engine from Tom Kelly. And all of a sudden we found out what we were missing, and just bolted in the Comtech and went from 28th to 2nd, and finished right behind Ari Leindyke. After that race, Ari Leindyke retires until the next 500. Right. But and Fred Treadway and Sprint asked Ari, who should take over in 99? And Ari said, well, that guy. I mean, like, you can see the difference in just a motor, And so, yeah, he got the Sprint deal for 1999, was his teammate here for his final 500. Wonderful experience and unbelievable person is Ari. And it's a great year. And, yeah, so that year had a lot of close, couple pole positions and close runs. And then it was a perfect storm at Vegas to pass Kenny Brack there with 3 laps to go and win that race.
But then it wasn't too long after that until tragedy struck you. And by the way, Sam and I have talked, and he doesn't mind talking about it. So what do you remember about that fateful day?
Not a lot. thankfully, I think that's one of the, sort of natural systems that kicks in. Might have went to Waffle House, but that's one of my vices when I was ever in Florida. But I remember that we were there. Robbie McGee had signed up with Fred for that year, and they're going to run 2 cars, and we were still looking for sponsorship. But I don't remember much other than showing up at the track, and my engineers told me later the problem is we were half a second quicker than we'd ever been, and good news we were half a second quicker. Bad news we were half a second, so we bottomed out and backed into the wall, and all the rest is what I've been told. It's been airlifted to the hospital and on a ventilator and all that fun stuff. And
So when you were recuperating, did you ever ask yourself, why am I doing this? Or why have I done this?
I'd be lying if I didn't say there, last 19 years there hasn't been, times when I get down or but I think some of the times it's just because of, I knew what I was doing. I knew what the risks were, seen, other friends get injured and or worse, but I didn't, I don't really like what I put my family through. 6-month-old, 2.5-year-old. My wife has to put up with all this. My mom had to put up with round 2 between my dad and me. I mean, just all this stuff. It really wasn't their choice for me to pursue my dream, and so that has bothered me. It gets particularly frustrating when you want to, teach your 16-year-old kid how to drive, and you can't do that, and other than verbally, and that doesn't work very good either. But so those things are when it bothers me. You know what I mean? But I was also realized how extremely fortunate I was that my dad had gone through it, and we had a little bit of experience, and they said he'd never walk or talk again, and he obviously does both, quite well with a limp, but it's arguable, but he does, and so I had great insurance, and the people that don't know it, I mean the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the George family, the Indycar series by far has the best, insurance and medical policy and all that kind of stuff of any series that I know of. And so, that was very supportive and sort of red carpet, and anybody, the whole situation like that, just like with Robert, I mean, the whole community comes out and says, what do you need? Where do you go to do a whole deal? And so we had total support from day one, and let's face it, 99% of the population in this situation doesn't have that. So, kids loaded up 4Runner, went to, St. Louis, stayed with me for 6 months. And so how can you not be motivated when you don't have, that kind of support? And watching my dad, recover from his situation as much as he did, you just got to get on with it.
And wasn't there another paralyzed Formula One car owner that had a great influence on you at that time?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Derek Daly, who made the introduction. I think that was 2002, when at Formula One race here, he set up a little meeting there with Frank Williams. And, I'd done a lot of things, before, and during my racing career, but, when it takes you 2.5 hours to get up every morning, you got to really, really find something you really want to do. And, even though I hadn't been a car owner prior to my paralysis, I looked at Chip Ganassi. If he can do it, anybody can do it, right? It's not that easy, as I found out, really quickly. But so dive in with both feet like we always have, and focus on that from 2002 on. And I was kind of fortunate that Indy Lights came along, because it was a great place to sort of get things organized as a team owner, and we could always do the 500 as a one-off as a team, and so that was a great sort of stepping stone until 2011.
I remember so vividly when Tags won the pole position here, and I think I said on the air that if there was ever anyone that deserved a reward for all of the time and effort you have put into racing, it was you. That was probably a big moment for you too, wasn't it, seeing your first pole position at Indy?
Well, frankly, it was another one of those good news, bad news situations, because I went into that year, the last year of that equipment, basically the equipment was free, and let's do this year, and if we're good at it, we'll come back by the DW12 and roll on as a team owner. If we're bad at it, then we'll go back to Indy Lights and make money. And unfortunately, we got the pole, and we're still in IndyCar. So it was huge. I mean, obviously, it was the fast team, Rob Edwards, all those guys had worked really hard to get the team to where it was. We took it over that year, and it was unbelievable. It wasn't just him. I mean, Townsend Bell was running a one-off with us and qualified sixth. The car over there with Dan Weldon, our guys, owned that car, built that car, gave it to Brian and his guys and Todd Malloy, and they ran it and won the race. So I mean, we were hooked from that point on in IndyCar. So it was a fantastic month of May, spending that month with Dan and then Tag, getting the pole. And it was one of those reverse deals, like it was raining and we weren't sure if we were gonna, and we were the last one to go, and it was just insane, So yeah.
Well, I will never doubt your determination to drive a car at 100 miles an hour plus again, as you did at the Speedway. That was incredible, wasn't it? Did everybody see that? I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. The Aero Electronics people and you came up with this way that you could drive around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at over 100 miles an hour racing Mario Andretti. Wow.
Lifelong dream, yeah. To this day, my mom likes to say that was the first time I ever used my head to drive a car. But yeah, that's her line. But no, I mean,
explain a little bit about, I mean, it's still incredible to me how you control a car and make it go fast and brake, and I can't do that myself sometimes.
It's a testament to really, I mean, innovation, and if you kind of re-inspired me a little bit about, if you put your mind to it and you get the right resources and the right people, anything can happen. And I was amazed because I literally got a call out of the blue, didn't even recognize 303 area code, and they said, this is Joe from Aero, and you don't know me, but would you like to drive again? And I'm thinking, well, how much is this going to cost me? And they're like, no, we can. We have a group of engineers. We can do this. We're a technology company, and okay, whatever. What am I have to do? And they're like, no, we'll come to you. We'll show you how we're thinking about doing it stuff. I'm like, well, if they're willing to make the investment, and they'll come to me. And like 4 days later, they were in my dining room table, and I looked them up online, and yeah, it's a real deal. And so, but what was truly amazing there is that was like August of 13. And, by November, I was in the simulator, and April, we did a couple laps around here at 40 miles an hour. It was scary as hell, but I like anything that's a prototype, but then, they knew what the goal was. I mean, Jeff's back there. We had the car in our shop, and their engineers were there probably 30 days nonstop before the 500 that year, which is now 2014. And, like 3 days before, they're like, no, this ain't gonna work. We're not gonna make it, But it almost like, a race car guy, getting to the Chili Bowl. Like, I mean, we don't have an engine right now, type of thing. They worked on it 24/7, and that first year we came out and did 107, and I was amazed, but it was still, the hat, and I was pushing my head back to increase the speed, and it was very funky, but it 7 months, start to finish, and I thought, okay, they got 300 million, whatever they call it, impressions, and they got a great return on investment. That's it. We'll never see them again. And like 3 days later, the CEO was like, "What do you want to do next?" Yeah. And so just like your cell phones advanced, they kept, the engineering team kept pushing the envelope, and next year was 150, and then Pikes Peak, and that was stupid, insane.
What is next? Are you going to do it again?
I will not do Pikes Peak again.
No, no. I'm thinking only of here.
That was 156 turns, not a lot of guardrails, a lot of blue skies, and we did it in 15 minutes, which we just did it as an exhibition, but it wound up beating like 25 of the entries. And at the top, the series supporters are like, you need to come back and race this next year.
Yeah.
And my navigator was Robbie Unser, who's
Knows the place a little.
knows the place a little bit and is very technical, but about as crazy as they come. And and even he looked at me at the same time we said, no. No way. Because it didn't quite hit us until we did it.
Yeah.
Just how dangerous it was. I mean, talk about putting all your eggs in like this technology that's communicating wirelessly and everything's happening instantly. But so that was the craziest thing we've done with it, probably the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. But then last year we went 192. So, but going 192 is a lot easier straight than
I suppose, but
than
still.
going up that hill in 15 minutes. So we now, the next step really full circle was I got a driver's license, and then so I have a valid driver's license, and I don't know how many people saw it today, but just this morning we were on the Today Show. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I'd known that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably online by now, but we taped a segment a month ago where a really great reporter that I like, Harry Smith, we picked him up on the Upper West Side in New York City, of all places, which is almost as stupid as Pikes Peak. But then I delivered him to work down in Times Square, and so we drove around Manhattan for almost an hour, and thought I was going to have a few yellow swipes on it by the time I was done. So they just keep pushing it, and it's ironic how full circle it is in the sense that they provide the car, they provide the resources, they provide the engineers. I just show up and drive.
Yeah, well.
So I don't know why I'm still a team owner.
Don't sell yourself short.
If I was smart, I'd just drive that Corvette all the time and not worry about the other stuff. But.
Well, you mentioned being on the Today Show, and I don't know how I've missed this in the last 71 years, but when you were a college student, you were on
Thanks, Jim.
Press Your Luck.
I know where that came from.
You guys know the game show I'm talking about, don't you? Won over $16,000 now. And I understand, and quite frankly, I forgot this because I was going to watch it this afternoon. It is available, I understand, on YouTube and any other place that you want to find it. But Sam was on Press Your Luck. Now, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Next subject.
Well, there's a lot of things that I'm thankful for that I didn't have Twitter back when I was younger. So, but that somehow made it through that, and then there used to be a channel on cable for like TV game show channel or something like that, and it would occasionally pop up on that. I'm thinking, when is this thing going to get buried? But now I think it's on YouTube, and I'm never going to get rid of it. But just one of those things. I was at college. I was sitting around, and they had one of those things pop up. Come apply for this game show. We're having a college week. I went down for that and wound up making it on, and played for 3 days, and that paid for my MBA totally.
So did you have to prove you could play the game before you actually became an on-air contestant?
Yeah, it was one of those stupid things. You go into a room with about 100 people, and you got to take this this pop quiz thing in about 5 minutes, and you got to answer as many questions as you can, and that filters it down to about 30, and then you go into the room, and they call you in packs of 3 to play the games for the producer to see if you can look like enough of an idiot to do it. And I'm glad I didn't get called in the first 3 groups, because I had to sit there in the green room and learn how to play the game.
Really?
by watching other people, because I didn't know how to play it when I got there. And so just kind of, BS my way through it. But got on it, and everybody was amazed. I mean, the 80s, it's still a lot of money, but that was a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
College student. I mean, literally, my parents helped me with college, but once that was done,
Back when you had...
I was done, and I had to figure out my way after that, and so...
Wow. That's cool. That really is. I can't wait to see it. So we're going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions here in a few minutes. Sam is, of course, on a very tight schedule and must leave here right around about 7:30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he will be back at the back of this room to greet you. You have something to tell me. Oh, Dave is going to help us with the audience questions. Great. So what do you do during the off season, Sam? Do you just get ready for the next year? And
Well, I always tell people, because they always say, well, you guys must be on the beach this time of year. I'm like, no.
Yeah, right.
The reality is, and I think anybody that lives this every day, is your success next year is determined by what you're doing right now and what you've been doing since the checkered flag dropped at Sonoma. And so you come up with a massive list of things you want to do better for next year, and you immediately dive into the R&D, and we're fortunate this year we don't have to change bodywork kits all over again like we did the previous 3 years. So give us a chance to work on some other things in the off season. And so, yeah, I mean, this is when the engineers get to play with all the developmental things they want to do. You tear all the pit equipment gets torn down to nothing, all the cars get torn down to nothing, and completely rebuild everything. So it's a really busy time. And then on the commercial side, we're flying all over trying to finalize deals, sign contracts, get all the livery questions answered, and get all that stuff done. So it's a really busy time of year. And in corporate life, a lot of times after December 15th, everybody kind of checks out, until January 1st. So we got to, we're pushing hard here this last week to get a lot done.
Any new sponsors for you this coming year?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We'll be making, about mid-January, should be doing the car unveil and making some pretty big announcements, so good.
Okay, let's open it up to you guys for some questions here in the next 10 or 15 minutes right here.
We'll see if it is on.
How about that?
Enough of me, more of you.
Hi, Sam. Really honor to have you here, talk to you. I would imagine that safety is one of your biggest concerns for Indycar Racing, and it's really amazing all the safety improvements that Indycar's made to get the venues themselves and obviously the cars. I hadn't watched a Formula One race in a while, and then I this year noticed the roll cage.
Halo.
So what is your opinion of the roll cage and windscreen, and when are we going to have it for IndyCar?
Definitely need something, no ifs, ands, or buts. And again, back to Tony George and the investment they made first and foremost, Safer Barry over 20 years ago, and they've always been at the front of that, whether it's the yellow light system, whether it's tethers, I mean, you name it, they always seem to be, reaching to solve problems as they occur. They've been interested in some type of head protection for a long time, but they didn't want to do it the wrong way. I don't think the halo is necessarily bad, but at the same time, still a lot of stuff can get under that thing and around that thing, and we obviously race on multiple different types of circlets and ovals, and so there's the speed and everything else is just a lot of things to consider. I think the windshield prototyping and testing so far has gone really well. Just now what do we got to do about tearaways or debris or different things, to try and fine tune that and airflow. Into the engines and into the driver cockpit. So I think they're fine-tuning that, but I think, I'd like to see that we'll see that probably in, 2020, if not before. And then they just got to keep working. I mean, Robert's car, watch it on TV. He's lucky, to come away from that. And so it wouldn't have been, I don't think you'd have that outcome, 10 years ago, so.
Has there been a determination as to exactly what caused the spinal injury? Was it hitting something? Was it landing? Any way to tell?
They're still analyzing. I talk to Dr. Trammell, every 1 or 2 weeks. one of the downsides was, I think, the crash box they had in the car made either, got the pole or something like that because it was destroyed. And so there's very little available from that. And so they've had to revert to, just frame-by-frame footage and trying to, see as much as they can. And it's just extremely, 220 to 20 in nothing. And so the twisting and the deceleration is basically it.
And you mentioned the halo. The thing that bothers me, I guess it doesn't bother the drivers, but you've got that post right down the middle, and you can see that. I mean, it doesn't disappear when you're going down the straightaway. You're like looking on the left side and then the right side. I just don't see how that can be considered safe.
Good question for Marcus. I haven't driven one, but
Yeah.
I think you're so intensely focused, in one of those cars and in any, car at this level that, probably just goes out of whatever focus as you're looking far ahead. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't realize. IndyCar, you're traveling a football field a second. So if you're not looking at turn 2 when you're going to turn 1, you're not looking, far enough ahead. So that's part of the process too.
Anybody else?
What do you think the extra power is going to do for you as an owner and for the racing coming up?
Extra what?
Extra horsepower for the engines.
Horsepower? Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody always wants to go faster. I don't think, I think it's going to be, hopefully exciting for the fans. We've already recognized this year that these cars have less downforce than the previous 3 or 4 years, and so you've seen some people that have taken advantage of that this year and some people that it hurt. So extra horsepower, same body kit, it's only going to highlight that even more. So doesn't pay my bills, but yeah, I'm all for more horsepower. Separate the men from the boys.
So this year in May, with Hinch not making the race, which I think was the most shocking thing that any of us saw since '85 in Penske, how tough was it as a team owner? You've got your number one driver, you've got your biggest sponsor, you've got all the people filling the tents, and you have to make a decision, do I put him in the other car that did qualify? And now with social media, you're being judged for every decision you make. How tough was that?
Before you answer that, we did an interview. It was the week of the race, wasn't it? I had Al Unser Jr. and Bobby up here, and the subject came up, and Al Jr. was speculating on what was going to happen and making all kinds of misinformation statements. And who rolls in at the back of the room? Sam Schmidt. So here we go. Sam, give us the straight story, and he did very graciously. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was shocking to us too. We certainly never anticipated being in that situation, and hindsight's always 20/20. I mean, the only silver lining in the whole deal is that we were in pretty good company. With Roger and Bobby as well, who missed the show, 1 year with all his cars, and it's extremely humbling. It's a total gut check. We were sitting there waiting to go out, and the gun goes off, and you're just like, I can't believe that just happened, And so all kinds of things racing through your brain. What are you going to do? But we have an incredible, group of supporters. Went, straight back to the tent. CEO of Aero was there because he's a huge fan of the sport and what we're doing, and just sat down and said, hey, what do you want to do? What are your priorities? And he didn't even miss a beat. He's like, man, we still got 2 cars in the show. Moving decals around. Our people are going to come here. Hell, they're going to have more time with Hinch than they would have if he was racing. So that was literally the conversation. And so when you got that behind you, and then really, I mean, Mike Schenk has really worked hard to get here, and so had Jay, and there was no way we could ask one of those guys to step aside. So yeah, it was pretty quick and straightforward decision, although we don't want to be in that position again, ever again, so.
Anybody else?
Two things. One is, please don't ever forget you are a motivating person. There's no doubt about that. And the other thing is, if you had new drivers in front of you, and you probably already do this, what, as a driver and an owner, what is the gold nugget advice you would give them?
Don't. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's take up tennis. Is usually the first one, but you know, we do. I was just, you know, a couple weeks ago. They have the world's largest karting event called SCUSA out in Las Vegas, and I get a lot of, you know, 8, 9, 10-year-olds and their parents saying, you know, what's the secret sauce? What's the magic? I mean, I always tell people at that age, especially, you know, race what you can afford to race properly. You know, to give you the potential to win. You know, win. It's you know, as an owner now, I look for people that have won races, won championships. You know, it is relevant if you don't have a budget and you know, are running around you know, against people with really tall budgets and finishing 4th, 5th, 6th. But at the end of the day, all anybody cares about is winning. So it's you gotta put yourself in a position to win. A lot of guys, well, you know, hey, it's better if I run 5th in Indy Lights than 1st in Pro Mazda. It's not true. So there's that. You know, the second thing is, you know, learn everything about it that you can. I mean, I feel very fortunate that my dad, you know, grew up on a farm in Nebraska, so there was no easy route for me. It's like, you know, I had to prepare my motorcycle and then my SCCA cars and set them up and do the tow and do all that stuff. And so I think, you know, that helped me as I went on to just understand, you know, how everything connected and how everything worked. You know, I don't think any, you know, 8-year-old go-kart should have a go-kart kid should have somebody doing all the work on the car. You know, it just, yeah, that doesn't impress me. But, now obviously too, you know, being a full-time, you know, IndyCar driver or Formula One driver now is a lot more than just driving the car. You know, you got to be as sort of good on the track as you are off the track, and certainly, you know, James is one of the best at that. In fact, he's out in California right now taping another round of spring Honda sales event commercials, like they had this year. And I think we all got sick of them about April. You know, so guess what? They'll be there next April too. So you know, you got to have that, and that's what, you know, that's what pays the bills. And so that's you got to work really hard at that too.
Got time for a couple of more, maybe 3.
What goes through your mind that last hour before gentlemen start your engines?
It's a pretty busy time now. It used to be easy to drivers in the green room and get introduced and go, but now it's, I think race day last year we had 450 people here, and it's been a ping pong ball for me. The best time in the world is when I can finally get back to the timing stand, put the headset on, and it's like, okay, let's go have fun, you know, and race and strategize and be a part of it that way. But for me now, you know, there's a lot of people we got to take care of and make sure they have a really good experience here. So it's just really busy. But to your point, there is that time, probably from about 11:15 on, when they do clear a lot of people up the grid. You're by the car, and you got all the pageantry, and you got the flyovers, and then they, you know, march so there's 1,000 troops down the pit lane. I mean, you know, if that stuff, you know, doesn't stand up here on your arm, you're not breathing to me. And so that's, yeah, been doing that since about 1985, and that never gets old, for sure.
Go ahead.
I wasn't sure. Do we have 2 microphones going? I just wanted to make a comment on the question that was asked about what did you feel about not being in the 500 and that sort of thing. As a fan, I was there that day, and I was sitting with some people, and we were all just like, what? And it was just silence, and one man said, oh my gosh, I came from Canada. And this other man said, one of the best drivers we have, and he's not going to be in the race. And we were just all sitting there in stunned, as fans. We just couldn't believe it.
Me too.
And so, I'm sure. My question, I was in Long Beach. I worked the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I'm in race management. I'm nothing, but I get to watch the race real up close. And I was there when you did your car there. I believe it was
2015, yeah.
15, yeah. And did you have your glasses then, or were you?
No, it was still the ball cap. Yeah,
It was still the ball
2015
cap?
ball cap. We had radically improved the brake and the gas at that point, but still using the ball cap. And now, to your comment earlier, it's now evolved to where I can have my choice of sunglasses or.
Well, that was so
we've
cool
got it
this
equipped
morning
for
on-
helmet use too. So we got a number of different control systems now. So
I was so impressed this morning. I was watching you. You look so cool with your sunglasses on, and I was like, but I have to tell you, I sat up in the stands and watched. I was off during that time that you were doing that. I sat in the stands and just cried because it was so emotional, and I was just so impressed and inspired by you, and I still am. And it was just a wonderful thing for me to see that, and everybody else too.
the car has definitely allowed me to check a lot of boxes that I never thought I'd be able to check. Not just driving again, but the race against Mario. Here's a lifetime hero, and as much of an incredible gentleman off the track as he's on the track, and very supportive of our foundation and everything we think. And then I never thought I'd ever get to race the guy, and then he had to cheat to win. But
Darn it.
everybody said I should have knew he was going to do that. I'm like, I never raced against the guy, but apparently he did. He cut a lot of corners to win back in the day. But and then to go to Long Beach, I never got a chance to race there. And everything I did, I didn't race Atlantic, so I didn't race there, and didn't race Champ Car, so I didn't race there. But I've been going, going to races as long as I can remember, growing up in Southern California. So that was really special, And then Pikes Peak, just everything we've done, with that car, they've really let me, do what I want to do and have fun, and so it's good.
Okay, this is a three-parter, real quick. First one is, I just want to say
I don't know if I can remember
that,
three.
well, one is a thank you, because I want to say that for those of us in the disabilities community, you are a role model and a great example. The second one is also a thank you, and it is
That's easy.
that I love your car's liveries because this blind girl can actually pick them out because they're those lovely metallics.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then the last part is you started out in Indy Lights as an owner, moved to Indycar and have been successful. With the car count being as low as it's been lately in Indy Lights, have you thought about also fielding an Indy Lights team again?
Briefly. Then my wife reminds me. I think last year's New resolution was learn how to say the word no. I don't do that enough, and I had a really good time in Indy Lights. Obviously 7 championships and won the Freedom 100 here 8 times, and just it's great to help out guys like Joseph Newgarden and so many others get to where they want to go. But the reality is the car, the Aero program, the hospitality program is really just be careful what you wish for type of thing, because it is a monster, and we've got incredible people working on our team and team members. We've had to ramp up the staffing quite a bit to handle all that, but it's just a lot to do. And now Indy Lights, with what it costs to do it, it was taking a lot of my bandwidth, a lot of my time to talk to people and talk to parents and talk to drivers. And yeah, you got part of this side of the operation requires, 40 people, and this one requires, 8, and I was spending 75% over here when I needed to do this. So it just really was just a bandwidth and lack of time thing. I enjoy the support series. I think it's done a lot for a lot of drivers that would have otherwise not had that opportunity, but yeah, just no time.
We got to cut it off, but again, pardon me? Okay.
Sam, for us disabled veterans, we want to heartily thank you so much for not only your attitude, but the attitude you gave Hinch and Wiki during this time. And also, your guys are so fan-friendly, and from the unveiling we were at Lucas Oil to the garage sale, your staff, your drivers, and you yourself that we've spoken to have been wonderful, and I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you so much for that. God bless.
Sam, thank you very much. I do want to remind you again that our sponsors this evening are Main Event Sound and Lighting and Roos Chris. Their table is over there by the back wall. Sam will be over in that area to greet you for about the next half hour. He is on a schedule, so we have to get him out of here by at least 7:30. Thank you for being a supporter of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. If you are not a member, you can sign up tonight, and we'll keep you up to date on what's happening here. We have events all winter long and, of course, into the spring as well. So, Sam, you're an inspiration to everybody, and I truly mean that. You have given the sport so much, and it wouldn't be the same without you. We appreciate your being here tonight, and all the best of luck to Robert and the whole team this coming year. We hope you have a great 2019. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.